Hello friends, we're out back on the Arizona Trail right now, actually doing a little bit of a day hike up close to Washington Park. It's a beautiful area, and it's one of the riparian zones that the Arizona Trail crosses. I've spoken a bit about the importance and rarity of these riparian zones for our state of Arizona. It makes up a very small percentage of the total landmass we find here. Obviously, a lot of people want to flock to water and really enjoy that, especially when it's hot in the summer like it is right now. Over 100 degrees down in the valley. But also, these areas harbor the majority of our state's precious biodiversity. So we're out here exploring a little bit, re-hiking a little bit of the AZT, and we're actually going to be talking a little bit about water gear that I brought on the AZT. So stick around for that. So friends, we're going to be talking a bit about water today, and I just want to give you a little preface that it's something that's very personal. It changes very much person to person. For example, I know that I drank a lot of water when I was on trail, but now some of the people who are going northbound, one of the guys is saying that he drinks 1 liter of water in 7 miles. For me, I would probably do 2 liters in 7 miles, almost double that. So it really changes with what kind of a hiker you are, and that changes person to person how much water you're going to need. So it's crucial to sort of figure that out before you get out on trail, so you know how much water capacity you're going to need. Obviously, that also fluctuates depending on how hot it is or how sunny it is. So it's good to have that minimal amount that you need, plus the capability to fill up when you need to. And I'll talk about that a little bit in this little segment all about water filters. So we're going to be talking a little about the water filters that I carried out on the Arizona Trail, a bit about water planning on the Arizona Trail, because you need to have a crucial plan or you can end up in a lot of trouble. So for starters, let's talk about my filtering equipment. I started out with the MSR Trail Shot. It was one of the answers MSR put out to compete with the typical Sawyer squeeze type system. But I had a huge issue with this, that when I started the trail, this little part up at the top, let's see if I can get it off live. There we go. As you can see right now, this little red tab is above the rubber gasket here. If I were to try and filter water through this, water would be forced out the side here without being filtered. I actually would have to push this down first, and now that it's making a tight seal, then it would properly filter. I didn't know this about the filter when I first got on the AZT, and I got really close to getting some sort of waterborne stuff. I was drinking really funky stock pond water. Would not recommend this. I ended up treating all my water after that, but it still tasted horribly like lake. So I would not recommend this. It is unreliable and it can put you at risk. Sorry, MSR, not a winner. Then I moved on to the Sawyer Mini. The Sawyer Mini is a 0.1 micron, basically a dialysis filter that you screw on the end of one of these bags. So in this bag is where you put all your dirty water, screw it on there, squeeze it through, and then bam, you have clean water. The thing that I ran into with this though is it was filtering so slowly that to fill up my full 6 liter reservoir, it was taking well over an hour. And as I talked about in the last video, it's crucial that you save all that time so you can actually hike, because the sun is setting faster and faster every day, and it is a race against time in the fall. So every little minute that you can get really counts. So, as many other thru-hikers really like, the Sawyer Squeeze. It's the same exact idea, so as you can see, the filter is a little bit more chunky. It doesn't weigh a whole lot more, but you have to clean this filter a lot less, and it filters much quicker than other systems that Sawyer's put out there. I'd highly recommend it. It is worth the extra couple ounces because this is a much more effective solution. As a lot of people who I ran into on trail said, this thing is a game changer and you'd be a fool not to upgrade to this. I understand a lot of people like the heavy pump style systems, and I'm not against you. If that's what you're comfortable with, that's all good. But you can really save a lot of weight by using one of these. They're not expensive. But one of the things that I made a horrible mistake of is actually not carrying enough of these bags. They end up popping over the top here because if you don't clean this thing constantly, it gets a little harder to squeeze the water through it. And if you don't have a few of these bags to back up, it's bad. Because I was up, for example, in the Mazet cells, first day out in a 30, 40 mile stretch of wilderness where I can't get help, and both my water bags instantly popped. I wasn't using the Sawyer brand ones, and I found that these are a lot more durable. I was using some budget ones off of budk.com, and those just can't put up with the same stresses. I think that these are a little bit more reinforced in the seams, but I still went through 2 or 3 of these bags on the trail as well. But they lasted me a lot longer, so it's definitely something to consider. The Sawyer squeeze system does have that as a weakness, but if you drop your other filters, they'll crack or pop. There are things that can go wrong with every filter setup. These at least are replaceable, and it's not a whole lot of weight to carry an extra one in your bag. It's a couple ounces extra. All right, continuing on. There's a little substance you might want to have for one of the parts of the trail close to the Gila River. This is what's known as alum. And when you mix this in water, it acts as what's known as a flocculant. So it makes all of the dirt particles that are suspended in that muddy river water, it makes them stick together so that they fall down to the bottom. So instead of putting that mud through your water filter, you treat it and you let it all settle for about an hour. And then you'll be able to filter that water much, much easier. So alum could be a really crucial thing, especially in the Gila section of the trail, because that river is known to be really muddy, especially in the fall. So there's that. Now moving on to the water reservoir system I used. Hello friends. So I don't know what really happened with my camera, but part of the video out at Washington Park didn't save. So we're just gonna pick up where I left off in the video. So here are some of the water carrying vessels that I brought with me out on the Arizona Trail. And I started with this guy. It is the MSR Drumlight 6 liter with the MSR hydration system attachment. You have to buy this piece separately to actually add this hose to it. So this thing worked really well for me, but as I talked a little bit about in my backpack video, episode 1 of these gear reviews, this sort of bag, it expands both ways. So in my pack, it would really bulge out and affect the frame of the backpack. Because already I was probably going a little bit over the weight limit of the Osprey Exos when I was fully watered up and fully food and all that sort of stuff. It was probably going over that 40-pound limit at times, because there were moments where I was carrying like 11 or 12 liters of water, and obviously that weighs a lot. So this, with all that gear, I'm not even sure I was getting the full 6 liters of water capacity out of this thing. But on top of that, it would bulge in weird ways where I couldn't get this in and out of the water sleeve in that pack. So I would have to fill it up by drawing a siphon with one of my smaller water vessels where I'd hold the bladder lower than the bottle, and then I'd have to suck it all into the pack, and it added a lot of extra time to my water filtration activities. And obviously what I was talking about back up in Washington Park, that really cuts into your hiking time, and you need to save as much of that time as you can. And who wants to just sit around pumping water? It's not a good time. It's much quicker and more gratifying to just get it done with and get back on the trail, keep moving. So this is what I started with, this 6 liter, thinking that I really needed the water capacity, especially down after the Gila River, south of the Gila, between Superior and Oracle, that sort of part of the trail. And then after this started giving me a couple of issues, I wanted to try something new. Being I had an Osprey pack, I switched over to this Osprey hydration system 3-liter. And then, as I was talking about in that backpacking video, the first gear review video, it has this solid back to it. So this can only really expand in the one direction when it's full of water. And this helps protect the frame and your back while you're carrying all that water weight because of this rigid part of it. Also, Osprey has that really good guarantee that I've told you guys about in the past, and that covers their hydration systems. One of the other things I really disliked about this is the bite valve really wasn't nearly as effective as, like, say, a Camelback. I used a lot of those in my day hiking experiences before the trail. It kind of goes around the whole bite valve, and it's a much more efficient flow. So it definitely was a lot easier to stay hydrated. And when I had to go and like take this down to fill it up, you literally just slide this off and it opens up just like a Ziploc bag. As I said, this has a warranty, so if it ever starts leaking or anything, Osprey replaces this stuff. And if you don't want to take all the tubing and stuff off your backpack, you can just disconnect it. Super easy. Take this down with your water filter to your water source that you're going to pump from, and you're done. This will also fit a lot easier in that pack, in that water sleeve. I'm not sure if Osprey makes maybe a 5-liter variant of this. I'm sure they do, but I'm not sure how well it would fit. The 3-liter worked really well for me though, and I'd highly recommend this. This is what I ended up with at the end of the trail, and I plan on using this system in the future. But obviously, on the AZT, especially in the fall, sometimes you have really long water carries, upwards of 20 miles. I think my longest carry was around 23 miles. I could be forgetting one of them though. And that was between Superior and the Gila. I didn't get to water until after dark, and then it was a struggle to find water. Now they have a rainwater collector there. That got put in right after I started the AZT, but they didn't get rain for like 60 days, so it didn't have a chance to fill up. So now that big carry is like cut in half, so it might be different for you guys going into this fall season. But there are some really big, dry, hot carries. So it's important that you have the right capacity in order to manage that. It doesn't all have to be in one bladder. You can also carry, this is a vapor water pouch. It weighs practically nothing. Let's see, does it have ounces on it? I'll look it up if I can find it. But this holds 1.5 liters of water, and it weighs basically nothing. It's kind of paper thin though, so you got to be careful not to pop it. But a couple of these in your bag, or carabiner on the sides, would definitely expand your water capacity, and that could be very helpful out there. So perhaps something like that, or you could just carry more Sawyer squeeze bags, because this isn't adaptable with that squeeze system. It has a different type of threading. So you can carry a few extra of those and just fill them up when you're at a water source. Fill it up with that dirty water and then just filter as you need it. I know a lot of folks do that too. And then lastly, I also carried a Nalgene bottle while I was out there, and this is good for like mixing up Gatorade mix or something like that, or if you're doing like a cold soak, you could cold soak in here if you really wanted to, do oatmeal or something. Might get kind of chunky and make your water taste weird in the future though. But you don't want to be mixing up drink mixes in any of these plastic based carrying water carriers, because it'll stain the inside of that material and it'll taste like lemonade or red Gatorade or whatever you put in there for a long time, and it could taste really funky, especially once you start putting cow pond water in on top of that. It'd be kind of gnarly. So you want to do it in one of these Nalgene bottles, and then you can actually string one of these up in your bear bag, because this is now going to be a smellable if you do that. But you can keep these water pouches, as long as you haven't mixed anything in them, in your tent with you, so you have water in the middle of the night. I know there was a lot of times where I'd wake up at like 1 or 2 in the morning and just have a ravenous thirst, and that would suck if I had to go and pull my bear bag out of the tree in the middle of the night just to go get a drink of water. So if you can avoid that, obviously, strategically speaking, it works a lot better for you, having it set up that way. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about water caching on the Arizona Trail. I just made it to my second water cache, so that's pretty awesome. just a little note on this to fill you in if you don't know. It says here, private, Jacob, my name, Frodo, my trail name. There are two types of caches, private and public. Public can be used by absolutely anybody. No one's planning on it, just take it as you need it. You'll find that at some trailheads out here, some supply boxes, things like that. On the back here, it says public after 11:10. So I had 2 gallons in this cache, and I actually was doing really well on water, so I could barely even fit that 1 whole gallon on my bag. So this one is going to be left for others. It's not the 10th yet, that's in 3 days. That'll be fine. But it's really, really important. If it says private and it's before that public buy date, do not take it, because someone is counting on that, and you could make someone literally die of thirst out here. That's like leaving someone out in the desert without a horse, you know? So it's definitely important to have water, obviously. So that's sort of an overview of water caching. Since it's gonna be for public, I have it just kind of out there. It was stashed behind some bushes, waiting for me. So yeah, that's a little bit on water caching. I'm carrying out my empties. So as I mentioned, there's private and public caches, and it is absolutely crucial that if it's a private cache, do not use that. Someone is counting on that. And you need to put a public buy date on there in case you don't need all of that water. You could still pay it forward for someone else who's coming behind you. There's been an increasing problem though on the Arizona Trail especially, where folks will use cached water and then just leave the water jugs out there. And that doesn't really work unless a trail angel specifically has told you, leave the jugs here. They'll, some people go out there, they reuse those and they'll refill it. But in a lot of places, especially like on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, folks aren't really out there as much, and you need to carry that plastic waste with you. You're now responsible for that if you use that water. It's not someone else's problem. Even if they left it out there for you, they're doing you a solid by leaving that out there for you. You need to do the solid and finish that whole job for everyone, so you don't leave that plastic waste out there. If we don't start really cutting down on our plastic waste, land managers are going to start getting ticked, and we might not be able to do caches, and that could be very dangerous for some places, and it can make it very difficult and limit access. So we don't want to be those guys. We always want to, don't get in the argument of like, oh, I didn't leave this out here, this isn't my responsibility. If you see it, pick it up. An extra water jug on your back doesn't weigh that much more, and it can come in handy if you have a long carry coming up. You can just throw a couple liters in there instead of having to carry one of these or something, and then you're set. So that's sort of just a little aside on caching. The big areas that I really saw a need for caching out on the Arizona Trail, obviously, as I preface this video with, it's going to be very dependent on what your water needs are, and you'll dial that in as you hike. Try to have a handle on that before you go out though, because the whole north rim of the Grand Canyon is pretty devoid of natural water sources. There's a couple springs and there's a couple stock tanks, but for the most part you're not really hiking by creeks. You don't have the snow melt to really count on. So there's a lot of water caches up there that you'll probably need to use. Same with just below, or just south of the Grand Canyon, between the Grand Canyon and Flagstaff. Again, it's a lot of cow tanks and things like that. I remember hiking through a whole field of cows just to get to some water at this place called Lockwood Tank. There was a very angry bull that was there around fall season last year, so that was definitely sketchy, but it was the only water around for like 15 miles, so you got to take advantage of that when you can, regardless of if there's cows or if it tastes gnarly or not. So those two areas, and then between Superior and Oracle, from the Superstition Mountains to Oracle pretty much, you need some sort of cached water there, because it's just open desert, and with that open exposure to the sun and the heat, you're going to drink more water. And I think it's somewhere around a 20-mile carry from one water tank to a trailhead. You need to really plan it out. I know I cached 4 or 5 gallons out there, and that was the first day I ever did a 26 miler, like my full marathon. You could check out that episode up here. And I was very grateful that my parents were willing to drive out in the middle of nowhere to cache water for me. Without them, that could have been a little bit hairier of a situation. I know I drank through like 2 gallons that day. But as I said in the preface, I'm a huge water guzzler. And what worked for me might not work for you. You might need more, you might need less. And you'll dial that in as you go and fine-tune that. By the end of the trail, you'll be a fine-tuned machine. You'll know exactly how much food you'll need, exactly how much water you'll need. And you'll just really get it down to a science. There are folks out there that cache water, trail angels, and hopefully they'll be out there in full force this coming season. But if they're not, you still got to have some sort of a plan. You can't count on water caches. You might see in Gut Hook, oh, a week ago someone said there's a half a gallon there. Well, maybe the trail angel came out in the middle of the week and refilled the whole cache. Maybe they didn't and there's no water there. So it's really rolling the dice to count on those caches. Or, you know, maybe someone who had no idea what a water cache is on the AZT just stumbled upon it, some day hiker, and then they took all the water not knowing. Or they think it's litter, like some of the trail managers have done at the beginning of COVID because they thought it was a infectious disease risk and all this, even if it was sealed. So that's kind of difficult, and different people are out there doing different things, so you can't put all your eggs in one basket, especially when it comes to something as vital as water. And lastly, there's a couple more items you might want to just throw in your pack just in case some situations arise. A bandana to pre-filter your water. This will spare your water filter a little bit, make it so you don't have to back flush it as much or get replacement parts. Could definitely make a difference. Along with that alum that I was talking about back up north, this can really help you. And if your water filter craps out, like mine did, my first little jaunt out on the AZT with you know, no support or anything like that, with that trail shot, these little Catadine water tablets can really come in clutch. If you just throw these in your first aid kit, they don't weigh anything. And if you get a feeling like, oh, this water tastes really bad, or it's really questionable feeling, drop a couple of these in there. It can't hurt you. They're chlorine tablets, so they can add a little bit of like a pool watery taste to it, but it's safe, it's drinkable, and that'll keep you from getting a waterborne illness. And you really don't want that out there, because if you start having diarrhea, that's gonna really dehydrate you further, and that's a very dangerous situation, especially if you're out there hiking alone. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps the channel grow. And be sure you hit that bell icon so you get notified when I post my next video. I love helping you guys out, planning your trips. It's an exciting thing for me, reliving my experiences on the trail and sharing that so other people can enjoy these natural resources and be inspired by them as much as I have. So please drop me any questions you have in the comment section over on Instagram at trailtime.jake, or send me an email at trailtime96@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys and look forward to seeing you in the next video. You take it easy.